Karim Leinawi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome all of you. It's a pleasure to see you for a second time here in Rabat on this very important topic for us. Thanks to all distinguished guests, EU leadership, panelists, civil society representative, all of you, partners, friends, and my special thanks and of the Policy Center for the New South to Commissioner Bankole Adeoye, who has been, of course, instrumental in making this happen. Of course, the topic of this year is one of the field, the area on which we work here at the Policy Center. Not myself directly, but many of my colleagues. It remains at the center stage of Africa's challenges. And we will see during our exchanges where we are, where we stand, what are we doing together as a group. In the end, I think these days are sort of, interesting times, and there are times for, I think, introspection, rethinking what we do, and actually, Trump has made it possible by expanding the margins in a way, in a style you may like or not, but I think we take it here at the Policy Center as an invitation, as an opportunity to rethink what we do and to sort of self-reflect and introspect to try to do better. And I think that's a good time for Africa to rethink its place in the world. Since everything is shaking and moving, it's like this game where there are less chairs than the number of people trying to get a chair. So you better be fast. And I think our continent has to move fast in terms of how we see things, its place in the world, how it manages its internal affairs, and in particular, the topic of the day, which is, inclusive governance and what women can do. And of course, it's not only for women, it's a general sort of question, but today we decided to focus on that, which I think is essential, and how can we open the space for women to take more leadership and to do better. So once again, let me be short. We have keynote addresses, but I just wanted to share with you the posture here of the Policy Center and what we do. It's a group of 120 people. Let me take maybe this opportunity in 1 minute to explain what we do here. We're a not-for-profit. We're based on a university campus here, Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. It's 120 people, close to 75 researchers, combining senior fellows that have lots of experience, former minister, ambassadors, so on and so forth, top managers. And we have a passion. It's public policy, evidence-based research. So it's a sort of institute that grounds, what it does, which is advisory and ideas for better public policies in science. So there are a few things we believe in. We believe also, and that's the case in Africa, but not only, where there's a need to sort of combine in better ways science in general and public policy making, decision-making process, the fabric of public policies. I think that's what unites us. We work on many topics. We have two legs, which you don't find often in think tanks. We do economics and we do international politics. And colleagues are sort of covering all these areas. So we're very happy to, and glad and enthusiastic and motivated by this partnership. And thank you again, Commissioner Bankole, for making this happen, because this is, we're not we're not sort of operational, so we don't have a sort of a mandate or an operational arm. We're in the sort of advisory and the fabric, and before it gets into action. And for us, it's very it's essential that that we're close to any decision-making process. So. Two messages: more science in public policy, more sort of rigor, more cycle of we do things, we assess, we improve, we do things, we assess, we improve, and of course rethink Africa, invite Africa to rethink its place in the world, rethink how it manages its development strategy at the continental level, be more accountable for its people, and there's a window of opportunity. Let's use it. It may not last. It may close at some point, but I think today it's quite open. So let's use it together and enjoy the conference, and thanks for being here. Thank you.
Now, please welcome Ambassador Bankole Adeoye, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, for the keynote speech. Commissioner Bankole Adeoye, the floor is yours.
Executive President of the Policy Center for the New South, co-chair, FemWise Africa, and member of the African Union Panel of the Wise, African Union Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security, African Union Special Envoy for the Youth, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General to the African Union Office in Addis Ababa, ambassadors, distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is most pleasing to be back at this research center. It's most pleasing for us as the African Union, under the leadership of Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, chairperson of the Commission, to address you today. We appreciate the partnership with the government of the Kingdom of Morocco and with this policy center at this second session of this dialogue seminar. Morocco has been a solid partner for promoting capacity for African potential election observers. Without elections, there is no democracy. And therefore, we see the contributions today as very, very critical. But in my keynote address today, I will be stating 3 facts. And this is food for thought for the panelists that we're going to have as we engage on one of the most interesting topics of our time. I will also be showing you some data explaining what is so critical for the millions out of the billions in Africa that we work with, 1.3, 1.4 billion Africans. But is there a missing gap? Are there weak links? Are there drawbacks that we must address? But let me first of all give you the facts that we see from the perspective of the African Union. The first fact, it is that there is an undeniable fact that democracy is of overriding principle in the African Union norms. democracy is unshakable according to the norms of the African Union. In saying so, it means that the African Union is on the right path to promoting, defending, and safeguarding democracy. But why is this right path so important for the theme today? Women leadership, amplifying their voices to ensure that democracy and elections remain part of our DNA, of our psyche. We are coming from the history in Africa of reckless impunity. We are coming from the history of military dictatorship, one-party rule in many of our countries. And at the turn of the millennium, Africa embraced democracy. Africa embraced multilateral, multiple engagements for the peace and stability of our countries. So the tenets of democracy, constitutionalism, the rule of law, social justice, they are embedded in all our member states. Are there challenges? Yes. Unconstitutional changes of government, limited role for women, limited voice of the youth. These are the gaps that we will be addressing today. So this fact is undeniable to the best of our knowledge, that democracy is on the right path, it is unshakable, and it has come to stay in Africa. Second fact is that as we ensure that women take the lead, we have to work to consolidate the norm that is democratic. And that norm shows what you'll be seeing on the screen shortly. In 2023, about 12 African Union member states held elections. In 2024, 15 member states went to the polls 17 times. What does this say? It shows that none of these countries, not one, postponed or delayed elections. The elections were held timely and in good order. What I'm trying to say is that 2023 and 2024 were what I call super election years. What were the outcomes? That is left for the researchers to discuss today. But the right to vote has become entrenched in the African psyche. Our governments must be commended, even though there are shortcomings. But remember my first fact, we are on the right track. My second fact is that we are consolidating, but challenges remain. So please see the screen. It is data that shows, next slide, please. It's data that shows what we have been working through. I'm supposed to use the, yes. So we are speaking today about amplifying women leadership. But there are silent voices that you will see in the data that have been provided. The first slide shows that in 2023, millions of Africans registered to vote. 112 million Africans voted validly out of 253 million that registered. So roughly less than half of those who registered actually voted. And out of those who voted, you had over 1.5 million spoiled ballots, meaning their voices were not heard. Their votes did not count. But those who voted out of the registered voters in 2023 shows a rough 50%. In 2024, 144 million plus registered. This is our data collated from the various African election management bodies. Out of this, you had a number that you will see on the screen of spoiled ballot that is also showing millions that we have to deal with. It is important that as we go ahead, you look at how best to ensure that education will improve. 10 million spoiled ballots, but 87 million voted. But registered voters were over 144 million. Now, as we continue to work on this data collection, we look at the disaggregation of the data. And we see in 2023 that out of those who voted, 52% were female, 48% male, and 54% youth. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, do we see this data reflected in the leadership positions in a democracy? This is what our panels must address today. It is equally important to see by gender in 2024, you find the youth as 57%. You see the male at about 46%, and you see the female at about 54%. Again, do we see this reflection in the actual positions in our democratic dispensation? The answer is, of course, no. By and large, the comparative analysis is there. I will not go into details because of time. Most importantly, we have to continue to work for the benefit of those whose voices are not heard. It is important to increase voter civic education because millions are left out either deliberately or due to non-understanding of the political space. And we can guess that most of this will be women as we work together for the good of our continent. Finally, my third fact, that's the end of the presentation, but my third fact is also very germane. It speaks about the future because it is not factual as of today. It is futuristic. And that is what I call an evolving fact. That the status of women is below par for those who play golf. It is below expectation. It's below the data that I have shown. apart from few of our countries on the continent, no one has 50% women representation in parliament, or indeed in many of appointed positions. So should women form an integral part of the dividends of democracy? Of course, absolutely, yes. Should youth be part of the equation for the dividends of democracy? Certainly in the affirmative. It is for these reasons that the challenges we face in entrenching democracy must be a collective effort. How do we address the backsliding in the Sahel, or 6 of the member states of the African Union suspended for unconstitutional changes of government? Are the rights, fundamental freedoms, right to vote protected? What do we do about post-election violence? Violence on the day of election, violence pre-election. Democracy is not war. Democracy is a peaceful exercise. It is about choice. We must amplify the role of women and the youth. Let me end by emphasizing that we see a great intersection and interconnection between democracy and development. Africa cannot afford to be democratic and remain poor. Africa cannot afford to be developed and remain undemocratic, because democracy is an integral part of human civilization. It is open. Freedom, all the fundamental freedoms must be developed. We believe that progressive democracy will enable modernization and transformation. The basic rights entrenched in political and civil rights, as well as economic, social, and cultural rights, particularly the right to development, must be embraced. I want to end, Executive President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. You may not remember everything I've said, but please remember these few words I'm going to say. Democracy is hollow, is empty without the dividends. Let me repeat. If millions you see voted in 2023, millions that voted in 2024 have no access to schools, to water, to healthcare, have no right for their fundamental rights, democracy is shallow. Democracy must be accompanied by the dividends. Therefore, we can make democracy a win-win partnership. Partnership by voting, partnership for the policymakers, the elected officials, to deliver so that we can have sustainable development. I thank you.
Justice Effie Oyor, the floor is yours.
Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, colleagues, and friends, it is a big honor and privilege to be in this beautiful, beautiful city for this important gathering. We were so busy this year celebrating Beijing and the advancement which women have made, and we are all so dressed up. Some of us who came the whole way from Mexico to Beijing, to Nairobi, to the north, we were singing the song that we have made very, very big progress as women. The Commissioner's statistics have changed something inside me. They have just told me that all these celebrations we are doing as women is hollow, looked at from the perspective of democracy. It's always difficult to speak after the Commissioner, but let me try. I come with very, very warm greetings from my fellow members of the African Union Panel of the Wise. His Excellency Domitien Ndayizeye, the former president of Burundi, and Her Excellency Madame Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, the former deputy president of South Africa. They both join me in expressing sincere appreciation to the African Union's Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, and the Policy Center for the New South for convening this timely and meaningful dialogue. The theme of this seminar, Inclusive Governance, Amplifying Women's Leadership in Africa Electoral and Democratic Processes, could not be more relevant. Across the continent, there is growing recognition that sustainable peace, accountable governance, and resilient institutions cannot be achieved without full, equal, effective participation of all women at every level of political life. Africa has made commendable strides. We have witnessed the adoption of progressive legal frameworks, the introduction of gender quotas, and the rise of women leaders in both local and national space. We are especially proud to celebrate the recent election of Her Excellency, President Netumbo Nandi of Namibia, a landmark moment and a powerful symbol of progress for women's leadership in Africa. However, ladies and gentlemen, we must acknowledge candidly and collectively that these gains remain fragile and uneven. The statistics have just told us this. Progress is one or two corners of our continent is not enough. We simply cannot afford to leave each other behind. The challenges we face and solutions we seek must transcend borders. Regional solidarity is essential to our work. Whether in policy, peace building, or democratic reform, it is therefore vital that we support each other. It is only by joining hands that we ensure the push for inclusion reaches women and girls throughout the continent. We must think carefully about the wide-ranging structural inequalities and deeply rooted socio-cultural norms which hinder women's full participation in governance and electoral processes. Economic obstacles are a factor too. Political violence is another barrier. Particular attention should be given to young women. The challenges they encounter are often more formidable and appear insurmountable. I stand before you today as a member of the panel of the wise to affirm our unwavering commitment to women's meaningful participation in politics, governance, and electoral processes. Over the past 3 years, all our electoral observation, preventive diplomacy, and mediation missions have consistently advocated for inclusion. We have championed political processes that center the voices and experiences of women and young people. At the same time, we have been firm and vocal in calling out the politics of division and exclusion. We have also been deliberate in ensuring that the panel itself reflects these priorities, not only in word and policy, but also in practice. In this regard, I am particularly pleased to highlight the growing role and visibility of our wise youth, whose membership are with us here today. As a subsidiary mechanism of the panel of the wise, the Youth Wise has become an essential platform for nurturing young leadership, especially the leadership of young women in dialogue, conflict prevention, and democratic participation. Over the past year, WISE Youth has been increasingly active, participating in high-level missions to countries like South Sudan, Ghana, and Ethiopia. I have had the privilege of joining them on some of these missions and have been deeply impressed by their clarity of vision and sense of purpose. The panel has been intentional in creating a broader, more inclusive ecosystem in which young people, women, and traditionally marginalized voices are not merely present, but are central to our work. We still have a long way to go, but we are convinced that we are sailing in the right direction. In a few weeks from now, FameWise Africa will be launching its long-awaited continental cohort of exceptional, experienced, and carefully chosen female mediators. The launch will mark the end of a strategic restructuring, which will enable our network to play its proper role in mediation and conflict resolution across Africa. We are confident about our mediators' ability to make an immediate impact in a field which urgently requires the participation of women. We congratulate the Morocco chapter, which we launched yesterday, and we were very pleased. They have a lot of work in front of them. As I noted earlier, this is not work we can do alone. We must continue to invest in collective action, sharing, learning, and sustainable partnerships. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the women in this room, policymakers, peace builders, civil society leaders, academics, and activists, whose tireless effort continue to shape and transform our institutions and communities. Your work inspires all of us. On a personal level, allow me to reflect briefly on a conviction that has guided much of my professional life. I'm a lawyer by training and a judge by practice. For me, the advancement of women's political participation has always been intrinsically linked to legal and judicial reforms. Without strong right-based foundations and without access to justice, the gains we seek in the political space will remain partial and temporary. Legal systems must empower, protect, and uphold the dignity of every citizen, especially those whose voices have long been silenced or ignored. My appeal to you in this room is that even as we explore strategies and innovative approaches, let us not lose sight of the fundamental importance of legal and judicial reforms as the bedrock of all sustainable change. At the same time, we have to be vigilant. We must jealously, and I repeat, jealously, safeguard the gains we have made, because we are already witnessing attempts to undo progress. Rights we have secured are being questioned. Doors that we thought we had forced open are now being closed. We cannot afford to be complacent. For instance, in Africa, now we have about 4 or 5 women chief justices, which we thought was very remarkable. Each and every one of those chief justice women have petitions against them because they're not performing. That's why I said we might think we have arrived, we haven't arrived. We have to guard what we have. As we begin our discussions, let us do so with open minds and bold hearts. An important political year lies ahead, and we need to listen and learn from each other. I thank you. I look forward to fruitful and inspiring exchanges with you all. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
The African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Policy Center for the New South and the African Union.